Okay, so have you ever felt it? That kind of low hum of restlessness, maybe, or like a compulsive urge to check something, anything, or
Yeah.
just feeling foggy,
Yeah,
stuck
stuck
kind
in
of.
loops that feel really hard to break out of.
Exactly.
Oh,
And it's a feeling a lot of us have, I think. And for ages, we probably thought, oh, that's just me or, my brain chemistry or
a
something.
personal failing almost.
Yeah. But what really struck me digging into our sources was this idea that maybe it's not entirely about you. What if it's actually about the interface?
Precisely, and that's key here.
Yeah.
This whole deep dive, it's not about diagnosis, not at all.
Okay.
It's really about design. The core idea we're exploring from the sources is, well, it's pretty powerful. The loop is the interface.
The loop is the interface. Okay.
So what that means is basically those repetitive things we do online, the endless scrolling, the constant checking, hitting refresh. They aren't just like weird habits we picked up. They're actually the intended way these digital spaces are built. That loop, that repetition, that's the main way you interact.
Wow. Okay. That really does shift how you think about it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because that concept, the infinite loop, I mean, it used to be just a gimmick, maybe, like in old cartoons or something.
Sure, yeah, entertainment.
But our sources are saying, nope, it's way beyond that now. It's not just fun anymore. It's architecture.
Exactly, fundamental architecture.
Right, it's how apps are built. You think about TikTok or Instagram feeds, they just keep going.
Or Netflix rolling into the next episode without you touching anything.
Yeah, the design deliberately takes away any natural stopping point, makes it smooth, frictionless, and endless.
And the really big implication there, connecting the dots from our sources, is that the systems we use every day, they're fundamentally designed to reward repetition.
Repetition, okay, not reflection.
Exactly, not reflection. Think about variable reward schedules.
Yeah.
That's a key psychological thing our sources point to.
Like slot machines.
Sort of, yeah. The reward, that next interesting post, that notification ding, the next level in a game, it's unpredictable. You don't know when the good bit is coming.
Right.
And that uncertainty, that unpredictability makes checking again, scrolling again, inherently compelling. It creates this loop where the reward is just doing the action again and again. It doesn't encourage you to stop and think, is this actually valuable?
So it's engineered engagement. It's not just that the content is there. It's actively designed to hook us into repeating the action. But how else do they reward repetition? Is it just about keeping us there, or is there something more to it according to the sources?
Well, that's a really good question. User experience is definitely part of it, keeping things smooth. But the sources suggest it's deeper. Think about algorithmic feeds.
Okay.
They learn you so well, right? At every click, how long you pause on something, it all feeds the algorithm.
Which then gives you more stuff it thinks you'll like.
Exactly. An even more compelling, endless stream tailored just for you. The goal isn't really helping you finish a task or find specific information and be done. It's about maximizing engagement, keeping you in the loop.
Maximizing time in the interface.
Yeah. And it turns out the best way to do that isn't always giving you the absolute best, most valuable thing. It's about giving you just enough unpredictable novelty to make you keep looking, keep scrolling, keep repeating the loop.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So that feeling, that restlessness or compulsion we started with, it might not be a personal flaw. It could just be a completely normal reaction to an environment designed to make us feel that way.
That's a really powerful way to frame it. It shifts the focus from just consuming stuff to being actively pulled into these interaction loops.
Right. So our attention, it's not always directed by our own conscious choice anymore.
That's the critical shift, isn't it? Our sources really highlight this. Attention is being shaped, subtly directed by the design itself. Because it's so frictionless, so endless, your next action is often just the easiest one, the one the loop guides you towards, not necessarily the one you consciously decided on.
So for you listening, maybe something to think about as you go through your day, how might this design, this infinite loop architecture, how might it be shaping your attention?
Correct.
Your choices, often maybe, without you even noticing it.
Yeah.
The next time you're lost in a scroll, just maybe ask yourself, am I choosing this? Or is the loop choosing for me? Definitely something to chew on. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into something really fascinating, our attention. Specifically in this modern world, we've looked at a whole stack of sources that offer, well, a surprising new way to think about focus and distraction, especially when it comes to things like ADHD and, the technology that's just everywhere now. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is how this really challenges the standard way of thinking. The material we've gone through suggests our environment, particularly, digital tech we use every day. It's not just there. It seems to be actively shaping our ability to pay attention profoundly.
Absolutely. And here's where it gets really interesting. One of the core ideas is that ADHD is presented, well, not as a condition, but more as a response to noise. Now, that might sound a bit counterintuitive, right? But think about it. Have you ever felt that? Your brain just jumping from one thing to the next, like a pinball machine. Or you see that shiny new thing, a notification maybe, and you just have to look. The sources are suggesting this isn't necessarily a personal failing. It's framed more like a survival response.
A kind of hypervigilance.
Exactly. Like your brain's trying to cope with this overstimulated world by constantly scanning, that task bouncing, the idea pinging. Maybe it's adaptive.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, you can really see how technology pours fuel on that fire. Our sources are pretty clear that, platforms today are optimized for novelty-seeking behavior.
Optimize is a key word there.
Definitely. Think about infinite scroll. It just never ends, right?
Yeah.
Or those little microfeedback thing. Like
For little red dots or a like.
Exactly. Those tiny hits of validation or something new. And of course, autoplay loops that just pull you right into the next thing without you even deciding. These features aren't, accidental. They are designed purposefully.
So it's not just that the world is noisy, it's that the tools we use are designed to capitalize on a response to that noise.
Precise.
So what does this all mean? It implies that these patterns, maybe constantly checking your phone, it's not simply you being impulsive. It's described more like a feedback loop, rewarding short-term attention switching. You get that quick hit, that little dopamine reward for switching. So your brain learns, switch fast, get rewarded, makes sustained focus feel, well, kind of boring in comparison.
Right. It gets reinforced.
It really makes you question your own interactions with these tools, doesn't it? How much is conscious choice versus like a conditioned response?
And this raises an important question about the relationship here. What is the link between tech and, say, attention patterns associated with ADHD? The sources make a really crucial distinction. They say tech isn't creating ADHD that's vital.
Okay, so it's not the cause.
No.
Yeah.
It's described more like it's mirroring and amplifying tendencies that might already be there. Think of it like turning up the volume on something that's already playing, rather than putting the record on in the first place.
That's a really helpful way to put it. Understanding that difference feels key.
Wow.
It separates, who you are from these really powerful environmental forces acting on you.
Exactly.
Which kind of brings us to the big question that the sources seem to pose directly to you listening right now.
Yeah.
Can you really focus when every system is designed to hijack that focus?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, it's a heavy one. So wrapping up this deep dive, the main takeaway seems to be this. Our attention, our focus, maybe even what we call distraction. It's profoundly shaped by the design of our digital world. It's a new lens, suggesting these aren't just personal struggles, but maybe a predictable response to engineered environments.
Right. And maybe a final thought for you to chew on. If our attention is being constantly molded by these systems, well, what responsibility does that put on the people creating the tech? And maybe more practically for everyday life, how can you, knowing this, start to navigate these digital spaces more consciously? How can you actively cultivate that deeper focus you might be looking for? Something to think about. Welcome to this deep dive. You know that feeling, right? The endless scroll.
Constantly refreshing.
Yeah. Always searching for something more. What if that familiar digital loop isn't just a habit you've picked up?
But something, maybe a bit deeper.
Exactly. Like maybe a subtle form of compulsion, almost engineered into the very tools we use every single day.
It's a really fascinating area to look into.
So today we're unpacking how these, everyday digital behaviors can surprisingly echo some pretty ingrained psychological traits.
And crucially, what that actually means for you, for your relationship with technology.
So what's really compelling here, and our sources definitely point this out, is how these common actions, opening the phone, checking the same few apps, refreshing again.
That loop.
That loop, exactly. Well, it's not a diagnosis, of course.
No, absolutely not. An important distinction.
Right. But they really start to mirror some established psychological patterns.
Like what specifically?
Well, things like the persistence of intrusive thoughts, maybe, or that compulsive urge for repetitive checking, and that constant drive for reassurance seeking. Does that ring a bell?
It does, and our sources actually highlight this. They call it the normalization of compulsion.
Normalization.
Yeah, it's like transforming these, deeply human urges into just everyday digital habits right there in our pockets.
Wow. Okay, and here's where it gets really, really interesting, I think, based on the research. These digital environments, the endless feeds, the constant notifications.
The whole digital landscape.
Yeah, they aren't just engaging by chance. The material we reviewed highlights they seem deliberately designed.
Designed how? To do what?
To kind of exploit our fundamental human need for certainty. It's almost like they mimic the very structure of obsessive rituals.
So it's almost like training.
It feels that way, as if they're subtly training us to constantly seek closure.
But never quite letting us find it.
Exactly. So, okay, what does this all mean for you listening right now? When digital tools might be training us to constantly need closure, but then they never quite give it.
That's the core question we need to tackle.
Yeah, that's our mission today, to really try and understand this deep-seated training effect.
Okay, so let's maybe unpack that a bit more. You mentioned the normalization of compulsion.
Ah.
How exactly are these digital tools subtly training us? Do the sources give concrete examples?
They do. And the mechanisms are surprisingly elegant, really, in their simplicity.
Okay.
Take repetitive checking, for instance.
Right.
Our sources detail specific design patterns like the infinite scroll. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the classic social media feed, pull to refresh.
Exactly. Think about pulling down that feed. There's just no bottom. It's an endless stream.
It never actually ends.
Right. And that directly mirrors that impulse to check and recheck, always looking for that new thing, that next hit.
Because you never reach a natural endpoint. There's no signal to stop.
And we've all been there, right? That moment you realize you've just pulled down to refresh for, like, the 5th time in a minute.
Almost unconsciously.
Yeah. It's almost like the internet itself is a giant refresh button for your brain.
That's a good way to put it. Or consider reassurance seeking. Notifications are a classic example.
Those little red dots, they get you every time.
They do. They're like these little mini rewards, aren't they? Designed specifically to pull us back in.
That urge to see if your message was read or how many likes your post got.
That's precisely it. That's classic reassurance seeking, just amplified digitally. And what's interesting, according to the material, is it's not just about positive feedback.
Oh, really? How so?
Even sort of negative or uncertain signals, like seeing someone typing and then stopping that, can keep us engaged. We're trying to resolve that ambiguity,
Okay. So it's not just that we can do these things digitally, check constantly, but the platforms themselves are built to encourage it, to reinforce those urges.
Precisely. The design often employs what's known as variable rewards.
You mentioned that earlier, like a slot machine.
Exactly like a slot machine. You don't know when you'll get that satisfying piece of information or that connection or that like. So you keep engaging, keep pulling the lever just in case the next one pays off.
Wow, that makes sense.
And this creates these incredibly powerful feedback loops that are, frankly, quite hard to break. Our brains are just sort of hardwired to respond strongly to unpredictable rewards.
So the fact that there's often no clear ending, no real completion, that's deliberate.
The sources strongly suggest that the lack of clear completion cues is very much a feature, not a bug. It keeps you there.
Okay. What genuinely surprised me when we were digging into this was how this constant state of searching, this unfulfilled need for closure, it connects to something much bigger.
Something systemic.
Yeah. What the sources are calling the reassurance economy. How does our individual need for certainty actually, fuel this whole system?
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, zoom out a bit, it really reveals a powerful concept from our sources. We're effectively living in what the term a reassurance economy.
A reassurance economy. Explain that.
Well, imagine a system where the longer you're left feeling uncertain, the more you engage with the platform.
Because you're trying to find the answer.
Yeah.
Or the update.
Exactly. And that continuous search, that very state of your uncertainty, is, in fact, their core business model, according to this view.
Wow. So my not knowing is the product, in a way.
Your pursuit of knowing is what keeps you generating data, seeing advertisements driving the platform's value. Your need for an answer, a confirmation, or just seeing what's next keeps the engine running.
That's a really powerful thought to unpack, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
That the very act of us seeking reassurance, that constant need for closure in the digital world, It isn't just some personal quirk or habit.
No, it's presented as the fuel.
It's what actually fuels these systems and creates immense value. It becomes about engagement, perhaps at any cost, to our sense of completion.
Which really raises an important question, something for you, the listener, to consider. If these digital spaces are fundamentally structured to keep us perpetually searching,
Always looking.
how do we possibly find a healthy sense of finality or, satisfaction when the loop itself seems intentionally designed never to truly end?
That's a tough one.
It is. Definitely something to reflect on as you navigate your own digital life.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really digging into a paradox, something that feels, well, very relevant right now.
Yeah, this idea that the more information, the more input we get.
The less we actually seem to produce.
Yeah.
Less. It sounds counterintuitive, right?
Totally. Our sources, they're calling it infinite input, collapsed output.
And it's not just, about productivity in the work sense. It hits clarity, actually finishing things, even just resting properly.
Yeah.
And here's the bit that really caught my attention from the sources. Maybe you're not tired from doing too much, but from, and this is a quote, doing the same thing without meaning.
That's fascinating, yeah, because the sources really get into the why behind that. Our brains, they're wired for, purpose and completion.
Okay.
But these modern digital systems, they often set up what our sources call digital loops.
Digital loops.
Yeah.
What does that mean exactly?
Well, think about tasks that don't really end. They just reset.
Like refreshing a feed.
Exactly. Refreshing feeds, scrolling endlessly, swiping through apps. There's no real exit, just another cycle starting.
Oh, okay. I see.
And your brain, it actually logs all this stuff, this repetitive scrolling, tapping. It registers as effort.
So even though it feels passive, our brain thinks we're working.
Kind of like running on a hamster wheel, maybe. You're putting in energy, but not really getting anywhere satisfying.
That makes sense. So it's actual work for the brain.
Yeah, and the sources point out the results. It's this triple hit. First, cognitive exhaustion.
That brain fog feeling. Can't focus.
Right. Then there's emotional erosion, feeling kind of detached, maybe cynical or just numb. And finally, motivational numbness. You just can't seem to start things, even things you used to like.
Wow. So it's not just being lazy.
Not at all. And it leads to this really core question the sources raise. What if you're not broken? What if your reaction is perfectly, human?
Human in a system that's not really built for human rhythms.
Exactly. Maybe your brain is actually trying to, protect you from burnout.
Protect you. How?
Well, when you're just constantly hit with these fragmented bits of information, things you can't finish, your prefrontal cortex, the decision-making part, it just gets overloaded. Decision fatigue sets in to the brain's protection. It might be a natural downregulation, a way to stop everything from just collapsing.
So it's dialing things back because the input is just too much, too unstructured.
That seems to be the idea. It's a response to the design of these interfaces, not a flaw in you.
That's a really important shift in perspective. So how do these endless systems actually, trap us? What are the mechanics?
Well, our sources highlight that they're built for engagement. Continuous engagement.
Keeping you there.
Right. They give you just enough novelty, a new post, a new email to keep you hooked, but rarely that sense of completion, of resolution.
It's like a perpetual cliffhanger.
Sort of, yeah. Think about notifications, autoplay videos, those you might also like things.
Little nudges.
Tiny triggers, exactly. Each one pulls your attention, stops you from doing deep work, or even just mentally resting. Your brain keeps trying to get that win, that feeling of finishing something.
But it never quite gets there in these loops.
It just keeps spending energy on these tiny interactions.
And this isn't just about getting less work done, is it? The sources seem to suggest bigger implications.
Oh, definitely. It reframes that whole feeling of being overwhelmed. It's not you being defective.
It's a natural response.
A natural response to tools designed in a certain way. Your brain isn't broken. It's, in a sense, trying to shield you from interfaces that maybe feed into our dysfunctions.
Okay, so the first step, the really crucial one, is just noticing it.
Awareness. That's what the sources keep coming back to. Not blaming yourself, not trying to reject everything instantly, but just recognizing the loop when you're in it.
Seeing it for what it is.
Yeah.
So if awareness is step one, what comes next?
Yeah.
For you listening right now.
Well, once you see the loop and can't understand how it works and how it affects you.
You get some power back.
Exactly. You can choose to interrupt it. And the solution isn't about suddenly becoming perfect or, throwing your phone away.
No cold turkey needed.
Right. It's more about consciously, deliberately reintroducing a bit of friction.
Friction, like making it slightly harder to fall into the loop.
Yeah, even small things. Set a timer when you go on social media. Put your phone in another room when you need to focus.
I've heard about switching the screen to grayscale. Makes it less appealing.
That's another example. Anything that makes you pause and consciously choose rather than automatically react, stepping off the loop, even for a bit.
And the idea is that this isn't about fighting technology itself.
Not at all. It's about regaining your agency, your control over how you use it. Our sources suggest your brain will respond positively once you create those boundaries, once you give it the completion it needs.
Building a healthier relationship, essentially. Makes sense.
It's about making the tools work for you, not the other way around.
Okay, so here's something to leave you with, building on all this. Let this sit with you for a bit. What small, conscious act of reintroducing friction could you take today? Just to step off one of these endless digital loops.